after generations of memories. When we're in that strong emotional place of touching in on those memories, we can get really, we can really speak from the heart in a very emotional and passionate way. Nothing wrong with passionate, well known for the industry they passionate. But also there's a responsibility that Ricardo identified about us learning to have a dialogue. Like this is an opportunity, like a community coming together and have really tough issues about things that we all really care about. Like everyone in this room cares about justice. Like I know that. Like we have different experiences, we have different histories, we communicate things differently, but we all definitely care about the same thing. So I'll get off my soapbox. That's just a little reminder, like, touch into what's really important. But one thing that's also really important is getting to the end of the meeting with the dialogue that does touch in on the deeper stuff that we really want to talk about. So that's enough from us.
Is it possible to turn the fan off?
I just did. It'll shut off.
That sounds like maybe we can project our voices at the same time. Because that's okay.
And I would request that people who speak stand up,
yes,
because it's hard to see and hear.
That sounds like a good idea, and then it's easier to project.
And if you could introduce your background at all, that would be
Also, please give us your name and and what you're from. Okay, son. Okay. Which of you gentlemen goes first? Actually, there's no protocol here. Let's Seku. Okay.
So I'm Greg. Call me Greg. Thank you for Darren, whoever Darren went, for inviting me today, and for Carrie and Kurt to be here. This is very important to us on a personal level, on a professional level. We're new in our positions. I've been in policing January. I just hit 31 years. I've been with the Boulder Police Department coming up on 28 years, so I have history in our community. And both of them have extensive time also in policing. And as the new chief, I had the fortune of being able to select almost an entirely new command staff, and I've done that. And so I just wanted to say thank you. I did see the movie with you. That's the second time I've seen the movie, and what a powerful and emotional movie that is, and brings back memories.
Are you from the South?
Thank you. I'm not. I'm actually a Colorado native. The majority of my relatives are back in Pennsylvania, but I'm a Colorado native. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
My name is Virgil. I'm a sixth generation Colorado native. I almost made it being a Kansas native, however. Lived in Nicodemus, Kansas. Nicodemus, Kansas, historically was the first black settlement west of Mississippi. And my family's home to that. I almost made it, but my mom decided that she wanted me to be born in Denver. And that's 3 weeks later, I made Denver because of the family thing. I'm not going to spend too much time on myself, but I thought that was significant because you're looking at a leader in the past that has to be back in the prison again. I'm a civil rights activist and leader. I've done a lot of stuff down in the Denver area. I've been all around this country. Denver was segregated at one time, okay? But with me, I started with the mayor's office, so I started on top. Mayor Theo McNichol and his little group, okay? And as an urban court worker, the first urban court worker of the state. And they moved me to a place with community Relations at the time under Minoru Yasui. The reason I mention him is because as I talk, he's going to come into play with this because he was also a civil rights person. Most of the people that I worked with at a young age were civil rights people and leaders. Minoru Yasui, in World War II, they had both people for the Japanese invasion right outside San Francisco place. He was a lawyer at the time. He protested that. And they put him in jail and eventually on boat. He came back and he became director of community relations here in Denver. Powerful person. They even got a statue of him down there in Denver. Okay? I worked with Virgil. When I say that, I'm a person that leads protests. I read about maybe 7, 8 protests in the Denver area. One of them was for desegregation. With Rachel Newell and I put together, and she was also working at the commission. She's also a school board member. She's black, and we helped desegregate the Denver public schools. We protest and other things. All right? So that was successful. I was working for the Commission on Community Relations at the time. My next job was affirmative action with the water board. They were discriminating against blacks and Mexicans over at the water board. So Minoru Yasui sent me over there with Bill Roberts. Bill Roberts, after what happened at the water board, became the first black councilman of District 11 there in Denver. From there, we moved on, and running the demonstrations is not an easy thing. People spit at you. They talk to you crazy. Right here in Denver, Colorado, very prejudiced and racist. You wouldn't think that in Colorado or Denver, quote, in that way. We're not a large part of the population. Right now, Colorado itself is 4% of the population. 50% of the black population are in jail. Something got to be done about that. Okay? You know, what black people want, what Martin Luther King stands for, he took us to the mountaintop. He said, although you may not be to the mountaintop, he's seen the mountaintop, and we shall overcome. Well, folks, we haven't yet.
Thank you.
There's no equality for black people, or other minority, actually, but black people first. Why? Because we were slaves, and now we're institutionalized slaves. Where private prisons are running the thing, and they're arresting people as simple as using drugs. So in my estimation, and working with a Judge Myers down in Denver, we started drug court. A lot of the judges were against it. Drug court said, you're innocent until proven guilty. We did background check and all of that on you to make sure, and we let them out of jail. The ones that violated, we put them back in jail and sent them to the county for about 4 days and bring them back. Because we know the main thing was that they needed treatment. They're not criminals. But our system now sees them as past felons, and they send them off to jail. Once they send them off to jail, and you're a felon, and you're black especially, you get out the system. You get out the system, you can't get a job. Everything is against you. You can't do nothing except go back to jail. People know that. Violation of parole and all of that is all set up for failure for black people.
Thank you.
Okay? And that's a fact. You know, Am I 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just close and say this. I could say a whole lot more, but I close by saying this, that, you know what? When are we going to take the stigma off of us being black Americans when we're all Americans? We don't say German American or Irish American. We say black Americans. We're not equal. And we have to become equal so we can all be all American when they go over there to fight. That bullet don't have a name on it, black or white or whatever. It's a murdering bullet. And they're standing there for freedom and justice for all. My last statement is that it's by the people, for the people. Okay? And if we got to go all the way back to the penning and the stripping of the Constitution itself and change some of these obsolete laws, the federal government is way too big. Get rid of them or they got to conform. Thank you.
I don't have a watch, so help me with that. Okay. When the bell goes off, let me know what. My name is Chairman Seku, and I'm going to be the next mayor in Denver, May 6th. Elections May 6th. And, well, a couple things, house things. First of all, we want to thank the organizers and the volunteers who helped put this gathering together. Many times they're the unknown heroes and sheroes, and they do it unselfishly, and they look for no recognition. But I'm kind of old school where I recognize first things first: janitors, butlers, maids, salt of the earth, foundation. So let's give these folks a round of applause.
If I could interrupt, is that if you need water or something to help, raise your hand and I'll be around to help out whatever you'd like to, whatever you need.
Oh, thank you.
Second thing, here's some cards, website. Take one, pass one around. I'll put them on both sides and then run it out. I got some more here. Okay. Chairman Seku. I am the founder organizer for the Black Star Action Movement for Self-Defense. And we are advocates for poor, working poor, and homeless people. And what we did was we embedded ourselves into the city council 4 years ago and was doing a field study, research, where we attended all of the general sessions and subcommittee meetings to find out how this thing works and how you do what you do. So my dad always told me, he said, boy, you can't defeat the enemy if you don't know what he's doing and how he's going about doing what he's doing. So you've got to do some study, do some research, so that you have not an opinion about what's going on, but you have an informed opinion, and you will have data and fact to back up whatever comes out your mouth. So we don't get caught up into disputing the truth, because you do what you do, and you can't get past that. The only thing you can do is rationalize and justify. But if it's wrong, it's wrong. No matter how you cut, no matter how pretty you try to make it, no matter how powerful you try to make it, because there was different versions of slavery in different states, but it's still slavery, and it still wasn't okay. And so you have to fight the principle with opposing principle. Like, fight for truth to oppose the lie. So don't be personal. And it gives the opportunity for everybody to change their mind. Because some people don't have informed opinions, but they have a belief system. Okay, and you act out on that. And Stevie Wonder once had a song called Superstition. He was talking about marriage, superstition. And in that song, there was a chorus that said, if you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Because superstition is not the way. So, I'm really here to hear what you guys have to say, and when you go to their website, what we're doing is something different. That is, we are going to actually practice democracy. So on that website, my opinion ain't nowhere on there. Those are the opinions of other people who have burning desires and what they like to see happen in the next 4 years in the city, county, and government. And then what we're going to do is, based on the hits on the website, we're going to take the top 5, and that's what we're doing. So if you mad at Seku because he did what the people said do, well, guess what? You got to talk to them. Don't talk to me. I got to do my time, which is to represent what your will is, not mine. Whether I agree with it or not, when I take the position to take the position, I got to do what my boss tells me to do. So this is the first job I've ever had in my life. I was born and raised here in Boulder. So my first economic experience was my daddy taught me how to do it myself, and at 5 years old, I had a lemonade stand in front of his barber shop down in the Five Points. I was born and raised there. And I'm 62 years old. And this is probably the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life. Recently. I got the experience when I was 20 years old, where one of my mentors wasn't in that film that you just saw, whose organization was mentioned, but who sparked all of that through nonviolent recording. And his name was Stoker Carmichael. And I met him at the University of Denver. Condoleezza Rice's father introduced me to him. And it was at that point that he raised my consciousness. And we worked together until he died. And I'm not a leader. I'm a shipbuilder, I'm a soldier, I'm a worker. That's all I do. All right. And I get it done no matter what at my own personal price. So think about me. So I'm a revolutionary. We never thought his wildest imagination he'd ever be inside running for mayor. We're like, are you kidding me? So these are blind spots in life. Everybody's going to have one. All right? I'm just having mine. I'm having a wonderful time. And with your help, we can straighten out some stuff for real. You understand me? Mm-hmm. So I do regime change. I do not do anything else. All right? I want the power of the people to be supreme every day, all the time, in every area of our lives. And until we get that, there will be no liberation, there will be no freedom, there will be no rest for the wicked. We just got more work to do.
So I'd like to invite any people who want to make comments or questions for any of the panelists. So if you could just raise your hand. And Chief, you have to meet down by 2:30, right? So you may want to address something to him first. So you have one. Anyone else?
I have a question about the movie.
About the movie? So 2. Okay. Remember your number. Anyone else?
I'm here.
3. 4. Huh? Well, I just
Questions.
suggested that. Yeah. 5. Okay. 6. Remember your number. So 1. No. 7. Oh, you're 7. Okay.
One was over here.
Yes.
So I'm right behind you. Hi.
Do you want
Nice to meet you. My name is Jen Watson, and I am the facilitator, administrator, and chairperson of the Boulder Coalition and Alliance on Race. We've been meeting for about 2 years almost, and I'll try to keep this brief. So we work on the whole array of issues involved with racism, and what's everything from education to, for instance, Michelle Alexander, mass incarceration. We do activism, just a whole variety of things. So of course, recently our conversations have been around police brutality. I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Police brutality, you know, how arrests happen, the whole pipeline from beginning to end. And so I receive at least monthly reports from people in Boulder about racial profiling. Oftentimes they're from friends of friends, people who are speaking for other people because there's a huge fear of being profiled in Boulder. And so in our last meeting we talked not only about the police brutality, about racial profiling, we also talked about the desire to meet with the police department and talk about what it's like to be you guys and what happens for you on a daily basis. And along those lines, you know, what goes on during arrests with people of color in Boulder, and I'm not just talking about African Americans. And so we're at a place where, I mean, I'm just so grateful that this is happening today when I got this news. You know, this is the answer to what we addressed at our last meeting, so desperately wanting to meet with you guys and not knowing how to do it. So having said all of that, my question for you is, how can we continue to have these dialogues with you? I know you're leaving in 20 minutes. And so how can we continue to have these dialogues and be assured that there will be authenticity, that there will be follow-through, and that there won't just be words, and that you will in fact be willing to listen to the voices and take a look at behaviors in the police department, whether it's just oblivious enculturation, whether it's apathy, whether it's, you know, good cops on bad. You know, my group and the people who contact me monthly, sometimes weekly, need to know, you know, where do we go from here? How do my friends, the people that I love in my group and in the community, how does an end come to this profiling for them? And I've not ever gotten brutality reports, but I know that it happens. So thank you for being here. Thanks for listening to me.
Thanks for those comments and that information for the question. Let me think of where to start at. So first off, the dialogue begins today with us. We need to continue the dialogue, and starting in a couple of months, we're going to have community dialogue as we talk about, from the police perspective, community policing. That is, we're going to have more community dialogue as we talk about community policing in Boulder and what that means. And these are issues that are near and dear to my heart, to my command staff's heart. So that's going to happen. And when you talk about commitment, you have my commitment and my command staff's commitment in terms of open dialogue, in terms of listening. We may not always agree about things because we do wear different hats and we have different perspectives, but we will always listen and be open to new ideas. As you can imagine, almost every community meeting that I ever go to, some of the same issues are raised, where profiling, where people are concerned or they believe that we're being stopped for a specific reason. And and so what I always say is I start from the departments, what we've done and what we try and do, because I think that's important. So, like, we have policies that absolutely prohibit profiling. We train, we provide training to officers, ethnicity training in ethics, in ethnicity, in cultural awareness, in all of that. We continue to have dialogues internally. This year, I'm focusing training on diversity and cultural awareness, and I'm bringing somebody that I've known for about 10 years, a gentleman by the name of Wendell Pryor. Do you know Wendell? Yeah. Wendell has worked for the city and county of Denver. He was in charge of the Civil Rights Division. He was the HR director in Aurora and Oakland and San Francisco. And so Wendell's going to come in and he's going to provide training for everybody in our police department. Has to go through that. Thank you.
So what's number 2?
I was. First, you stole my thunder. Community policing and restorative justice, and anyone can take the police academy. I've been trying to take it for 7 years, but I got so many brush fires trying to stop the development at 30th and Pearl and everything else. But my question about the movie is when they're, and I don't know anyone can answer it, is when they're trying to march the second time, and they stopped. Who, first of all, one question: who told them to back off? The bad guys, the police. Who told them to back off? Who told them? Does anyone know?
I could give a brief answer on that. Monday night, there was a meeting all night long. Stokely was in the meeting, and Governor Collins of Florida, and Martin, and 3 or 4 other people. And the point was, everybody knew we were going to march. What are they going to do about it? Somehow, on Tuesday, somehow, after the meeting, somehow maybe Governor Collins, Martin Luther King, maybe John Doerr, somehow it was portrayed to Martin that there's going to be a massacre if you go ahead on. And they cut a deal that Martin would turn around, but the Alabama State Troopers betrayed him by opening up the highway before we stopped to go down and pray. You know, the idea, and we all felt betrayed at the time. 30 years later, I studied what Martin said and everything that happened. Now I agree with him, but at the time we all felt betrayed. And it was set up to make him look betrayed, make it look like he betrayed us. In retrospect, I feel he did the right thing, but at the time we were tragically. Yeah.
Did you march?
I'm in shock.
I got my head cracked open on Bloody Sunday, and I led the internal security force for the March on Montgomery, and. Carmichael brought me into the movement. I showed up looking for work at Atlantic City and joined the Virgil, the MFDP, and Stokely and I dialogued for many hours, and he said, come on down and join SIC. And I was like John, I worked with both groups. Well, in a war, and things were falling apart, first thing you do is you blow up the bridges. Well, I was a bridge. Also, I didn't know anybody until I got there. Annie Lee Cooper, I'll stop talking after this. I love that Oprah played Annie Lee Cooper. She is a dear friend of mine. Every time I went back to Selma, I would stay with her in her house on the little tiny street down by the river. And she's just a darling lady. And she never recovered from that beating, but she died at age 96, so she was strong. But anyway, I'd be happy to respond to anything else, but I don't want. I see the movie the meeting is about more than the movie. But at any point now or any other time, I'd be happy to talk about what really went on. But the one thing, all of the hardcore criticisms against the movie are based on ignorance, a separate agenda, or racism. The movie itself is incredibly accurate about Lyndon, about Martin, even somewhat about Jim Foreman, but not that much. I mean, but it did show the conflict. The only flaw in the movie, it didn't show the 2.5 years of work that Snick did to make Selma possible. Bernard Lafayette came down into Selma in 1962. He said they had an X on Selma. He said, white folks too mean and colored folks too scared. I'm going to go down there and take that X and make it a plus, and we're going to put Selma on the map of the world. And that's what happened. Bernard Lafayette.
Which is when they were marching there, and then they stopped them.
Yeah.
That was not planned. They
No,
were
we
supposed
knew
to
we were
be
going to
fighting.
be stopped, but we didn't know they were going to open up the highway and make it look like we could walk.
Right.
Martin
You were
had
just-
made an agreement with Governor Collins or maybe John Gore to turn around because we did not have permission to march. There was an injunction against us. Martin would have been violating a federal and a state injunction, and it could have been a whiteout. And so we had to wait for Judge Johnson to give the approval 4 days later. So
what I wondered is when they did pull apart and back up, why didn't Martin turn around and say, we won? Like, because they stopped so we could go back now. We don't need to do the march.
No.
Napkin down on it quick. Was that your napkin on it quick?
Who's number 3? Who's number 3?
Yeah, I didn't want to give my name. Camera is here, so, thank you, Joy. My issue, and the reason why I don't want to give my name as an African American, one of the very few here in Boulder, and you can see here, there aren't many, there are 2 of us, and 2 speakers, and so that says a lot. And it's great to have supporters. And it's great that you're supporting the 4 black people in Boulder, but, in a way it feels as though Boulder is the new Selma, in a sense. Because it's a sophisticated form of white supremacy that we're looking at. And that's why we're here today, to deal with white supremacy. And I'm nervous, not because I'm afraid to talk. I'm nervous because I'm angry. I'm containing it. And the reason why there aren't many African Americans here today is because they're uncomfortable and unsafe coming out. And when we were out protesting a few weeks ago, and the only 2 people that got arrested were minorities. One was a Latino man and a black man. And why is that? Why were they lured into an alleyway to get arrested?
Same thing.
No, the movie answers that question. It's white supremacy. Do I have a question? I mean, I'm personally, I don't see the need to ask for my sovereignty as an American, as a person, as a human being, or my equality. Am I equal? Do I need your approval? No. I am in a system, and it does ask me, what am I willing to negotiate if nothing, So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this whole, just walking out of that Selma movie and being here now and realizing the reason why I'm standing up, really, is because if I come, I feel I owe it to my people to stand up and say, what are you doing here, really? Is this about your own self-righteousness or your self-admiration or what? But if you're really willing to do something, why did I get thrown out of a store yesterday? Why do I go through this every day as a black woman in Boulder? And I'm not saying long, trust me. But my point is while I'm here, I mean, as allies, how inconvenienced are you going to be in standing up for African Americans in this city that has very few blacks?
It should really be an easy thing to do. It's not like this is New York City.
I'm not inconvenienced. Not at all.
I'm speaking to the collective.
Yeah.
We had agreed that we weren't going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
she was asking.
you know, I really, you know, as a human being, I appreciate you, you know, but I really ask you to go deeper, and look at your white supremacy in order for you to see equality, where you came from, were you slave owners, okay, and go there, because that's where healing really begins, where you see yourself as a human being. You don't have to look at why, you know, there's no guilt here. No guilt, no shame, but just own that. Own your own white supremacy.
Thank you. Thanks, I just want to apologize. To me, that was a gesture of respect, but I understand that it didn't feel like that to you. So.
Excuse me?
Saying your name, to me, that was a gesture of respect, and I apologize for that.
I know, you didn't know. I do get that.
I'll take it with me. Sorry.
Okay.
And we're with you. Who's number 4? Oh, yes.
My name is Frank Virgil. I've been denied some licenses, one with a contractor's license with the city of Denver, and another one with an architect's license, despite I'm better qualified than the people stopping me. It is racketeering what they're doing. Denver is actually the worst in the country. And as far as the architect's license thing, so I've looked into these and said, wow, I'm someone with a bachelor's degree in construction management, a master in architecture, and I'm a professor as well. And they still stop me. What are they doing to people with race? It's disgusting. The span from degree to licensure has grown from 3 years in 1983 to an average of 11 years today. Our state law says no more than 3 years. So first go around, we'll be suing the legislature, the entire one, including Raleigh Heath, who did sponsor that bill. They have a checklist that they legally mandated themselves to go through, and it does say in there, is this law up to is it within within the law? Is the licensing within the law? And it's clearly not. And it also has in their minority participation, which they didn't check at all either. And the number of African American licensed architects in the state are 12 out of 6,762. Doesn't even come close to coming up with the other professions, which are around 3 to 4%, population 4%, or 0.2%. There's just a lot of bigotry going on to protect existing corporations from competition. With the city of Denver, there has been one person with melanin or a woman with a Class A supervisor certificate in the history of Denver. I don't think there's been any here in Boulder. I know that person that does have a supervisor certificate in Denver does not have a license here in Boulder. So I can't sue on standing, but I can put those into the Administrative Procedures Act and ask for judicial reviews so that our legislatures and city councils will actually start doing their jobs, the ones that they legally mandate themselves to do. And if you could please call Raleigh Heath and say, could you have done your job 2 years ago on the Sunset Review and reference Colorado Revised Statute 2434-104. He did sponsor the bill, and he should have done his job, and he didn't. Okay. Thanks.
Number 5?
Can I just say something real quick? I just want to say to him, please don't use you don't have permission. Oh, good.
Number 5? Who's number 5?
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the things that really, my name's Margie, yes, I live in Boulder. And one of the things that really drew me here was the statistic that I read about African Americans being 5 times more likely to be in prison in Boulder than white. And heard that there was some refuting of that statistic, and I'd like to know what you have to say about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. USA Today ran a story, as I understand it, of large national cities. And Channel 9 then ran a story based on Colorado municipalities. And the Daily Camera then ran a story based on Channel 9's story. So I sat down with Mitchell Byers, with Carrie and Curtis and several other people that I did. Sat down with Mitchell Byers with the Daily Camera, and I was astonished whenever I heard that African Americans were 5 times more likely to be arrested in the city of Boulder than whites. Because I know the population of African Americans in Boulder. And when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. And so I asked Mitchell, I said, where do these numbers come from? Help me understand that. And he did that. Channel 9 ran that story for a short period of time, and then it was taken out. So, based on that, internally we said, we're going to look at this, because I have an obligation to each one of you, and I have an obligation to our police department to look into that. And so we're doing that. But to put it in context, let me just put it in context. We have 288 employees in our police department. We have about 180 officers, and we have a little over 5% of those officers are African American. I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of those employees. I really want to have a diverse workforce. It can be difficult sometimes because Boulder does have a little African American population to get African American officers to apply, but we're working on that. So we average about 90,000 calls for service and officer-initiated activities a year in our city. We have 103,000 people, as you know, and we average about 90,000. We average about 3,000 arrests a year. So compared to 103,000, 3,000 arrests, 90,000 calls for service, we don't make a lot of arrests. In 2014, we arrested 150 African Americans. In 2013, so I'm going to go back, we arrested, I think it was 169, and in 2012 we arrested 158. So I do know that based on the data that I've gotten so far, on average about 60% of those arrests were based on dispatch calls for service. And about 60% of those were court orders or mandatory arrests that the officer didn't have discretion on. So I am continuing to look into that information, but I did want to let you know that it's not something that was brought up in the media. We talked about it, and we just let it go from there. We're continuing to look into those. And we're continuing to look into that. I know that, some of you know our officers in a good way. Joy has had interactions with officers over the years, and we have a good police department. There are times when we can do things and read through everyone.
Are you saying you don't believe it, or you?
Don't believe the statistic?
Yeah,
I'm not saying I don't believe it, but I don't know where the numbers came from, because here's the difficulty. If you use the city population as the basis, as the denominator, then you can only look at, to have a true comparison, you can only look at African American residents. If you're going to use the city population of 103,000, then to be accurate and fair, you can only look at arrests of African Americans who are residents and do the math that way. If you want to look at all arrests of African Americans, and in 2014 there were 150 all arrests, then you have to look at the commuting population altogether. You cannot look at it as just the...
Right, I understand.
So anyways, but looking into that means reading through reports
I
and...
want you to do
and
something.
looking at that further.
Is doing something a part of looking at it? Is that's all?
Yes, doing it is looking at it so that I can have an understanding of the numbers more and to have an understanding of the types of arrests that were made and looking at the aggregate data.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Number 6. Okay. My name is Rob Smoke, and I've lived in Boulder for about 28 years. And I'll just ask a brief question or comment question. And when the arrests occurred at the protest that was on the highway several weeks ago, 2 people were arrested out of the whole group, which was probably similar in makeup to this group. 2 people who were arrested had skin pigmentation. And one of them had apparently no reason or basis for somebody to be held on. So my question is there something that happens inside of police culture which says, we got to send a message, like cops will get together. And so we got to send a message to people who want to come out to protest that they're putting themselves at risk. Because that's the kind of message I get from it, that I'm a little bit more at risk for being arrested, whether I'm black or white, because cops are showing up with the idea ahead of time that they want to chill the protests, that they want things to they want fewer protests, they want fewer protesters. So I'm wondering, is there some kind of program thinking that exists, probably maybe not top down, but just in police culture generally, where that sort of thing happens, and that's what it feels like.
So this has to be my last question because I have to run. I have some other commitments. So here has been our stance on the protests. We believe that people have the right to express themselves and they have constitutional rights. So from a police department perspective, from my office down, we have said that we wanted to allow people to freely protest and to march and to be able to express themselves. So we actually, in some ways, facilitated that, and including U.S. 36 being shut down. We did not stop that from happening. We tried to make it as safe as possible for protesters, and we did that over the course of the weeks. So during the protests where the arrests were made, it's my understanding that the Latino gentleman that got arrested, so cars were stopped there. I don't know the dynamics because I wasn't out there, but a driver of a car reported to an officer that the Latino gentleman had spit on his car. And he said, and I want to file charges on that. So the officer said, pull around in the parking lot because it was an intersection setting, pull around in the parking lot. And he said, and the gentleman's sitting right there. So the officer said, hey, I need to talk to you. They walked back to the parking lot area because that's where the guy was going to be at so that they could take the report, and if it meant write a summons, write a summons. He wasn't in handcuffs. He was very cooperative, and he walked back there with him. At some point, so the officer got his information, and they were clearing him through the computer system as they would. The information that he provided was there was a warrant for somebody who had the exact same information, but the social security number was different, and they found that out later on.
Why did Ray find out right now?
One person at a time. I did agree, we're not going to interrupt.
I was there.
One
I was
person
right
at a
behind
time.
you.
So,
One person at a time.
I was asked a question and I'm just answering.
Well, this is your story.
Right.
Everybody realizes that.
But he was specifically asked a question, and we
So,
weren't going to interrupt.
thank you. So he was being detained, and the crowd realized that, and so the protesting crowd then went over there. And so the officers then, the crowd was concerned about this gentleman, and so the crowd was gathering around. And so the officers still were trying to
investigate the allegation of spitting and the warrant piece. So he was handcuffed and put in a car because they needed to get him out of there because the crowd was surrounding him. And then the other gentleman that was arrested because he got on top the hood of the car, and I think at one point, got on top of the hood of the car to stop the car from leaving. There was also a
Your
female.
car, the car with the guy in it.
Yeah, the police car. There was also a female who, anyway.
Why did you have to get him out of there?
Because the crowd was surrounding
The real
him,
question
and they
is
were
why he
concerned about the security of the situation.
Well,
So
there was nothing happening.
Let's
He's trying to interrupt also, so I'm wondering why you can't have the floor now.
So he was taken to the jail, and as the crowd surrounded, the guy who's got his car spit on left. Didn't have his information. Turned out that the warrant wasn't for him. There was. I'm gonna honor this man, but there was other
Thank you for honoring him.
There was information developed at the jail where he could have been charged with a felony, and the commander said, "We're not going to do that."
For what?
Spitting on the car.
I'm not going to get into that.
Well, why did
it's
you
in the police report. You can get a copy of the police report.
Well, why can't you just tell?
And so the commander said, given everything that's going on, we're not going to do that. Let's put him in his car, and let's drive him back to his car, and that's how that. Rob, thanks.
So how do I get the felony report? What's the guy's name?
You know what? Lynn, we can talk to you about it afterwards. From us. Lynn.
I don't know his name.
From us.
I don't know his name.
Could I connect with you later then?
You can call me, but I still don't know his name.
Mr. D has identified that he would like to speak next. We agreed to a format today. I'd really like us to stick to it. These are the kinds of things that we talk about that get us very upset. And many people are talking at once, and that's just not what we agreed to. We agreed to a good outcome of this meeting together. So let's just take a moment.
I'm fine. Could I have your business card?
He's the chief of police. You can find him.
I don't have a card on me, but you can call.
Okay, great. My name's Virgil.
But Mr. D has the floor right now. He is asked for the floor.
No, wait.
Please talk to me because I have to leave.
Wait, this is good advice.
All right, free good advice.
Okay. Because down in Denver, during the shootout with the police during the movement, blacks and Mexicans were shooting at the police, saw all the lights out and everything. And I was in a precarious position to stop all that kind of stuff. Doral Smith was kind of like that bold guy in the movie. But here's what we did in Denver. We started a group called Cooperative Endeavor. That's the meeting between the police and the community, each district. And what that did is quell a lot of problems down. And also you kind of find out who the bad officers are, because most officers are good officers. And so what we did is start the group Cooperative Endeavor, what they probably need to do up there in Boulder, and work with you guys and the community and get that done. And that would resolve a lot of the issues that happen out in the district, because we're actually meeting on it. And you got the police comment, and you got the community comment per district. Or if you want to have a wide meeting, that's up to you. But yeah, get the community involved with the police department, and you'll find out that there's a lot of cooperation there.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then after we complete this, then we'll take another round.
I want to keep this brief, but there are a few things I wanted to mention. One is I want to pass around this artistic rendition of the struggle of African Americans. I picked it up at the Martin Luther King Parade last year, so I want to make the rounds on this. So if you want to pass this around this way, I've got a few more things that I want to pass around. These cards are called OccuCard. Number 8 is the prison industrial complex. Right? That's number 8. Lastly, on the number 21 is the TPP. I imagine most of you in this room know about it, but most of the society doesn't, because number 22 is the media, the corporate media, how poorly a job they're doing to spread these events, these notions. One thing, let me pass this along this way. Here's the prison industrial complex. Let's get a few of these this way, those, and this. What I wanted to speak about is a couple things from the movie. Martin Luther King called Coretta, actually it was in the letter, that he said that there's a fog in my head. And you remember what he said was the answer that cleared that fog? I want to hear it. What's that word? Family. Family is what is important. Relations. Right? We're all brothers and sisters. So keeping that foremost, that should be our guiding principle. Right? No wonder we're in the fog. The fog, I've heard from an independent news source, it's called the forces of greed. That's another definition of fog. Right? And that forces of greed are the transnational elites that control everything. Our U.S. Constitution is based on English common law. English common law protects nothing but property and commerce. We are subjects of this country under that Constitution. No wonder we're in this fog. We've allowed this fog to fester for centuries. Now is the time. We cannot wait. Do you notice one more thing about March? They were carrying flags, a U.S. flag. They did not let groups co-opt it. They were American. 40 years later, through technology, through our education, through our wisdom, we know so much more. That's why I brought in my flag of the earth. Naomi Klein says that's a symbol of ecology. I think it's one planet, one peoples, one life, one universe. It says everything with no words, because we're part of life.
Where they got both Hunter to really be somebody they could be in relationship with in a way that brought media present and brought it to the forefront versus, what was the other one? The A city, Albany, where the police chief refused to participate with them in that way, and it became just too slippery in Albany for anything to happen. And I'm interested in hearing, especially from some of the people who led things in Denver and in the area. I don't think in Boulder, in Boulder, we're not in a place where the police are meeting our protests in riot gear like they were in Ferguson and in some of these other places.
Denver.
And so what we're dealing with is a really slippery thing, and we can't grasp onto it. We can't. It's hard to retell the narrative, and it's hard to get any kind of traction or any kind of involvement or light on what we're trying to do, and we sort of end up doing things in the darkness, and the people who are really against us are the ones that are posting on the daily camera, or the ones that are honking their horns in car or whatever those things are, and those people are slippery because they're not named, they're not visible, they're not in the hierarchy and the structure. And so I'm just curious if you have thoughts about how we as a community might gain some traction if we're not being engaged in that way. That's my question. Thank you. Really anyone who might have a thought. You two are activists that have done this, and so you have your wisdom seat holders in this way.
All right. Couple things just flashed. And as a community organizer, movement organizer, we are the ones who are supposed to organize the events and activities. Okay. And I can't blame the disorganized for being disorganized. So in that movie, you saw how we used to have training sessions. Before we even do anything, we want to be real clear about how it works. Now, come on. We organized demonstration closed down 36. There's going to be feds there. There's going to be Homeland Security. There's going to be local. All that and you're going to be dressed just like that. You don't even know they're there. Matter of fact, you probably have more police closing it down, laying in the streets than you had actually people. All right? So what do I do as an organizer? I got to have a training thing here. So the first thing I say is, anybody here got an arrest warrant? Come in. You can't come. You come, you're going to jail, and I don't want no mess with this. All right, and be confused and bored. Because you got an arrest warrant, you know you got one, you know you didn't come to court, whatever it is, misdemeanor, whatever, you can't participate. Because I need that to spark no madness. All right, and you know who you is, so everybody just get on about here and don't make you a bad person, because there's some things you can still do. Pass out leaflets, you do all of that. But on the day when the police is there, ain't no sense in talking about you can't come. Nowhere around. Be present. Because I don't want nothing to happen. All right? I don't want nothing to happen. All right? Then the organizers, we need to be spread out everywhere. And we need to be, if you're the police and I'm an organizer, I'm sitting here right here because my job is to monitor the police. That I know this police. So wherever he goes, I go. And if there's a problem, I diffuse it first. And that's an agreement we have with the police, because let me intercede first. If I can't fix it, then you go ahead and do what you do. All right? So that's one on that piece. Now on this other piece we got going on here. This is about really what are you doing? What did you do? Now Martin King once said, listen, you show me a man and a woman who has nothing they're committed to, they're not fit to live. 1957. Way before all of this. You bet Martin wrote 7 books. Y'all need to read all 7 of them. Let's be honest, I got 2. This brother was serious, okay? Serious. And you need to have study groups around nonviolence, and you're using him as a prototype how you go about doing stuff, right? You need to also understand mistakes that were made, ideas he changed. Because Martin was moving away from nonviolence. Yeah. Wasn't no sister talking about when he took that brick in Chicago on that poverty march? Martin went and got a gun. Yeah. And Sullivan took it from him. You can't do that. It's principle. Martin said, well, we need to think about this here. Right? Because philosophically, this ain't working. Because these folks ain't civilized, man. This ain't dealing with the British. You know what I'm saying? And the truth is, 99% of the American citizens have never read the Constitution. Never. Don't even know what it means, know what it says, none of that. All right? And so we have a responsibility to educate them, to make them read that, so you know what we're talking about when we talk about your right, constitutional right. You need to know what that is. And then you need to know how to defend right. All right? Now, the founding fathers never in their wildest imagination thought a son and daughter of African slave would be in the White House. They rolled over their grave like, what happened? What happened? You know what I'm saying? So you can see the transformation of an idea, all right? That they had an idea that was based on white supremacy, but folks grabbed a hold of this idea and took it somewhere where it wasn't intended to go. Because they draw it in parameters. They had paradigm shifts. But this all came through struggle and bloodshed and suffering. All right? And that's the process of transformation. To have a breakthrough, you've got to break down some stuff. And in the process of the breakdown, so you don't be idealistic, somebody got to die. It's
just like that. Because we're not that civilized yet. We're working on it. We're getting better. We're getting better. We're getting better. But we're not there. So, my suggestion is, right, one principle that we can all adhere to. Mark said it perfect. We need a undying, no matter what, love for the masses of the people. Amen. Period. That's it.
We need one what?
Undying love. No matter what for the masses of the people. That means everybody in here, no matter what you do, no matter how you say it, I can't shed your blood. No matter what, I can be madder than spit. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't shed your blood. Because to shed your blood allows me to be uncivilized. And the name of the journey is how do we become more civilized day by day, moment by moment, and take it one day at a time. Amen. I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to answer the question. I think this scripture talks about Martin Luther King, but come on, we live in the past. We're in the future. This is 2015. The world is wise to everything that goes on worldwide. There's a lot of strategies that has to change. What happened then isn't happening now. And if an homogenous group like you asked, because you're up here in Boulder, what can you do? You can do what a lot of other American citizens did because of what happened in Missouri. Okay, there was a lot of white people that was involved in that, and it seems like sometimes you guys seem to be left out of the whole equation. There was white people down there in Selma, okay, and there wasn't asked to go. But because you're a homogenous group here, there's not that many minorities. You can still do your bit. You can still organize. You can even be better at it now because it's worldwide. If you open up your eyes, it's just not here in America. It's all around the world. Okay? So what can you do as a group? You can get together and unite as a group. Okay? You can say what your platform or what agreement that you have in order to do what you want to do, protest what you want to do. I thought it was kind of crazy them kids and everybody laying on the ground like that. Even down in Denver and everything, most of them were white people. I'm here to tell you, but they were there because they had a civic duty they felt that they had to do for what's right here in America. And that's how that goes. I mean, yeah, you know, to me, them kids were kind of crazy laying on the railroad track. But, you know, that meant they meant purpose. But if you really want to get in what we used to call the man's pocket, is that you're going to have an economic protest one day in this country where everybody can get together and say, we ain't working today. Okay, we're going to shut you all down for a day and see what we can get. What we can. You're going to get what these young kids are doing now. They don't want nobody to die or get killed. Okay, but they're willing to. They just don't have no direction, and that's why I'm back again. I don't want to be back, but I know I got a lot more to do, I guess. And, you know, because they call me the powerful silverback. And Mr. B says, everybody is together now. Black, Hispanic, whites. We ain't that ignorant no more. It's the poor of the poor and the rich is the rich. Yeah. And how do you get in the rich man's pocket? You protest his business. You don't burn it up no more, because that's a thing of the past, burning it up. You don't have to burn it, because like that one guy said, they're burning up their own community. That don't make no sense. And it don't. But I said if you go like them kids did in the mall, that manager had a fit, because he couldn't sell nothing. He was in that, they were in that pocket. Okay? So we got to have a national protest. I'm closing down America for a day and let them people that have money tell what's going on. Right.
Hey, there's so much I want to say. I'm kind of overwhelmed right now. I want to confirm, did the daily camera leave when the police chief left?
Absolutely. I hear you.
Okay, so the media and the police are together. That's one thing I
Absolutely.
want to point out.
Corporate media.
Corporate media.
Yeah.
Bring it here. Yeah, right. So what we can do is support independent media. There are a lot of people doing the real work on the ground. But if we think we have any idea what's happening in Ferguson, we are so far removed from that situation. And all of the provocateurs, all of the undercover cops who are trying to create situations where buildings are set on fire and where violence happens.
Amen.
Okay? That's one thing I want to say.
Thank you.
The other thing I want to say, we want to fight white supremacy, we all have to look inside of ourselves.
Thank you.
Structural oppression is always internalized. That's why it doesn't really matter if there are some black police officers who are going to perpetuate the system they've been trained to perpetuate, just like we do. So first ask yourself, what are you willing to do for your fellow citizen, no matter their race or age or religion? We all have to be willing to die for each other. That's what I think.
That's it. You got it.
Okay? Also, we all have to be willing to march. We cannot be afraid to be arrested. I have seen organizers arrested for nothing in Chicago, in New York, and I saw police officers pushing people around, yes, here in Boulder. White folk as well as people of color. The other thing we need to do is listen to people of color. Thank you so much for standing up to speak. It's so hard to do that here in Boulder for you, and it's so hard to hear the stories. We all have to make an effort and reach out to the people we know and try to understand the situation. How we feel about the police is not how other people feel about the police. One of the reasons why there are few people of color here at this meeting is because there were police here. Okay? And police create trauma. That's not the only thing they do, but it is a very big part of their job. And traumatized people do not want to be around that. Okay? So it's more than just discussion. And I'm glad that the police are trying to have community discussion, but also know they can lie.
Yeah. And they do.
And they do, and he did. Okay? That person who was arrested, the warrant was out for someone of the same name, but a different race. A different race, which is why I spoke up. Okay? And I don't know what he said about the felony. I think, whatever. I don't believe that at all. But anyways, know that police can lie. Know that the Supreme Court just said that police don't need to know the law. You need to know the law, but the police don't need to know the law. So this is the whole system. Okay? And it starts from the ground. It starts from very young. I can say I grew up in Illinois, in the state of Illinois. They decide how many beds they're going to put in the prisons based on third grade test scores.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the school to prison pipeline. So what we all need to do is educate ourselves and continue our discussions. I guess that's all I can say right now. Thank you all.
Let me pick up on this. My name, I'm Strider currently in the movement. My name is Arkansas. Everyone in the movement still calls me Arkansas. What she's talking about, Ferguson, and somebody said about black people burning it down there, that's not what happened. What happened was the prosecuting attorney lied to the grand jury about what the law is. He explicitly lied to them for 6 weeks, and then after the testimony was all closed, and he directly invited a convicted felon white woman who wasn't even there to testify twice, and they all highlighted, oh, this is the only important testimony, and he goes back to post-Civil War days. Black people are not allowed to testify in court. So the 16 black eyewitnesses didn't count. But this one convicted felon white woman who wasn't even there, that's what counts. And that's how they did it. And if you notice, I was watching on TV that night, and the first 45 minutes, everybody was just milling around, and then a few fires started. Well, what happened? No fire trucks went to Ferguson, no police, no National Guard. They're all there guarding Clayton, Missouri, the White Enclave. It was explicitly designed to burn down Ferguson. That was the entire point. And then the whole nation jumps up all these crazy black folks. They burn down their own homes. That is what was going on. Now, just real quick on the other thing. Oh, by the way, in the movie, Malcolm X came to Selma. I never got to meet him because I got thrown in jail that day. What did I get convicted for? I got convicted for sitting on the white folks' side of the courtroom. I was convicted. And then the FBI came and slapped me around, and the KKK came and separated me and my other buddy, and Sheriff Clark passed out weapons for them to assault us in the jail while the FBI was there, in the other room, of course. So anyway, that's kind of what's been going on. I have history. I'm a historian. I'm a poet. I'm a writer. I'm an educator. I've never been allowed to have a job except for loading trucks for 35 years in Chicago. Why? Because I have history. History is illegal in this country, and the people, white or black in this country, don't know what the heck went on. That's why all these slanders against the movie Selma about, oh, they mischaracterized Lyndon, and they mischaracterized Martin, and all of this stuff. No, people don't know, so they accept the lies that are in the media.
Yeah.
That was an absolutely accurate portrayal of Lyndon Johnson and George Wallace. Absolutely accurate. The only thing missing in the movement, it should have been more Selma people, and like Betty Fikes, who got the children's choir together in high school back in 62 and 63, and all of the people kept coming out day after day. For 100 days, we had a demonstration every day in Selma, and going down and getting your heads cracked. And the kids, the children, they had a children's demonstration one day. What they did, they attacked them, drove them out of town. They had to run 6 miles out of town and put them in a prison compound in the wintertime and sprayed water on them. That is what was going on in Selma. Lowndes County, Alabama, I got my T-shirt. Sheriff John Hewlett, who was elected in the Black Panther Party, the real one, the original one, Lowndes County, Alabama. That's what we marched through. Give me a T-shirt. You know, he was sheriff for 25 years. But the point is just a quick thing. Economics, slavery and freedom and domination is always the name of the game. Are you for it or are you against it? And what they did, we lost 300,000 jobs in Chicago in 1 decade to industries, steel and electronics. Where did those jobs go? They went to Asia and Latin America and places where we had set up dictatorships to prevent workers' rights, human rights, women's rights, environmental rights. And now that's what they're doing with the WTO and NAFTA and the TPP. That is the name of the game. They have to stir up racism so they can get their real program across, which is enslavement. And it will destroy the planet unless we stop that. And the only chance we have to do that is to create a real democracy. Martin talked about tactics and stuff, and he was very committed. And you gotta figure out that game. And sometimes people die. Jimmy died. They shot him twice. Only shot him once in the movie. He was actually shot twice. But the point is, how do you figure out how to do that? And Martin, I think, is one of the greatest revolutionaries in world history, because he didn't want to just change who's on top. He wanted to change how the entire system operates. We need to build a human community, and we got to start at the bottom. That's why SNCC was so important, building the grassroots, to where Martin and Jose and Andy and the people came in. They could mobilize the community, but the community had to be educated, woke up, and organized first. That's what SNCC did. And SNCC, although there were conflicts, and I've tried to work with both of them, and sometimes it got hostile, Martin couldn't have happened without SNCC. And who's the greatest woman in American history? Does anybody even know? Miss Ella J. Baker. She created the entire movement. She went down to Montgomery in '55 with Bayard Rustin, created SCLC. They couldn't find a man who was competent enough to run it, so they gave her the job for 2 or 3 years as executive director. And then the sit-in movement started. Who created SNCC? Ella J. Baker went down and had the the conference in Raleigh in 1960, and then SNCC emerged out of that. We were the frontline troops in the movement. It could not have happened without us, but we also had to have discipline. In that march, we had discipline, and we got trained in philosophically and physically. And I love Martin Luther, and Stokely loved Martin Luther King too. And Stokely and Cleve both just walked right into his funeral and met that and sat down next to Coretta and they couldn't stop. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Pretty quick. Thank you. I just have some questions about the movie and what happened with the judge, because did Johnson know? Did President Johnson know which way the judge was going to go? Was he pressuring him? Because I felt like he really probably put his life and his family at risk by doing that. Were there any attempts against him by he really bucked the local white establishment.
Sadly, Judge Johnson ruled against Lowndes County a couple of times when the freedom movement came, so he wasn't totally clean. But he certainly made the right decision. I'm sure Lyndon was at least knowledgeable, if not directly involved, because it had to happen. And we got the injunction, and then we got to do the march. I think Judge Johnson was about as good a man as a white man in power in the South could have been at that age. That doesn't mean he wasn't racist at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But did they go after him?
For example, the FBI came and dragged me out of the SNCC office in Selma, and a couple of weeks later kicked me into a cell in Mobile. And after several weeks of incommunicado in the hole, no clothes, no food, no water, no nothing, no blanket, they brought me into federal court, and Judge Daniel Thomas, appointed by President Kennedy, he said, "Boy, are you going to accept or waive a preliminary hearing on your case?" And I said, "What does that mean?" "Shut up and answer the question." And I said, "May I speak with an attorney?" "Shut up and answer the question." "May I make a phone call?" I've been in jail over a month. "May I make a phone?" "Shut up and answer the question, boy, or I will hold you in contempt of the United States Federal Court. Do you understand, boy?" So I got lucky. I flipped a coin in my head, and I made the right choice. I got remanded back to Arkansas, and eventually Stokely Carmichael and Bayard Rustin got me out of jail that time. They were going to kill me. And so, yeah, maybe I answered. Judge Johnson was as good as a white man in power in the South could have been.
But did the whites go after him? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know if any, Richmond Flowers got elected governor in Alabama about 8 years later. He was a moderate, decent person.
Because I thought he was in.
And now Don Siegelman got elected 20 years ago, and what are they doing? They're throwing him in jail because he was a good guy. Yes, the retaliation. I've never been allowed to have a decent job in my life. I loaded trucks for 30 years in Chicago. I got my degrees in political science and history and philosophy and Master of Humanities. I can't get a job anywhere. Why? Because I have history. That's the nature. Education is not allowed, and I keep trying. And if there are 400 books I've got or read on the movement, this is one of the best, Bloody Lowndes, about Lowndes County, if you want to know what was really going on. And that was the beginning project of SNCC after Freedom Summer. And Stokely was the main organizer here, Bloody Lowndes by Kwame Hassan Jeffries. There's a lot of good stuff. Anyway, I better stop. Thank you.
You know, to answer your question about the judge not to be disruptive, no, nothing happened. You know why? Because at that time, you got to look at a time in history. I'm a political science ambassador too. And those people were ultimate power. And so what they said as word was word, and no one beneath them could question them. And now the reason I know this, because I worked with 32 judges right here in Denver, Colorado, when I was working. And the presiding judge ruled all the rest of the judges. And if they decide or not, they would make decisions. So back to your question, the answer is no way, because it was ultimate supreme power that they had. And if they made a mistake, you heard with Wallace and the president,
he used the word nigger too, you know what I mean? They were talking to each other. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, he was from Texas now. Texas was a state that didn't allow blacks to vote to be free 2 years after the emancipation, the confirmation. So just put your head together on that. And no, nothing happened to that dude. You know, no one, you know, they might have went and snorted on it or something like that. And said, you made a bad decision, George. That's all they said. They went on about their business.
In Alabama, it was illegal for a white woman to be on a jury in 1965. No white woman could be on a jury.
So
Right.
I just want to honor that. I know we had like 5, 6, and 7, and I think we've got about maybe to around 3:30. I don't think it's far, but I think we should be just conscious that there were a number of people that did want to speak. So we're in number 5.
Number 5 now. You only had, so you can be number 8. So
we are.
Can we stack again?
Yeah, or the current stack. Yeah, who was 5?
I'm 5.
Okay, yes, that's right, yes.
First, who you guys? I know you. KTNU, right? And you're?
Darren O'Connor.
The organizer.
I organized here in Boulder with a number of people.
I have to ask that because my name is Don Matthews. I've been trying to get out of Boulder for the past month or so. The racism is just too rough. I can't deal with it anymore. But I haven't been able to get out because for the past 2 months, African American men and their families have been coming to me because they've been getting arrested in Boulder. I've been visiting. I spent more time at the Boulder County Jail and the Civic Court since past 2 months than I have almost at home. Okay. In terms of my brother, the police chief, when Jeffrey Marion's case was up, he was an African American man who was convicted. There were some definite irregularities with the police. They actually mishandled the evidence. They lost the evidence. And so after he was convicted, and really thanks to all the folks here, he only got half what they wanted to give him, okay, because they showed up at court. But I asked him, this policeman admitted on stand that he had mishandled the evidence. They lost the major weapon that was involved in the evidence. What are you guys going to do? The police chief said, well, everything was done according to order. The district attorney said, well, I'll meet with you later. I'm waiting for 2 years for that meeting. The point is, if it had been a black moose, it would have done something. It was a black male, so they didn't give it there. I'm really sensitive about this because in one of the cases I'm working with now, a young man was arrested in Lafayette, and I've been told that if we bring it up as a racial issue, then he will not receive justice. Just straight up. It's not a racial issue. The DA is not racist. The police are not racist. So if you come in here with that, forget it. So we have to use another kind of approach. Another black man who I visited last week, he was coming up from Denver, homeless guy. They told him, don't come up to Boulder because you will get arrested. He said, no, Boulder's supposed to be cool. 2 weeks here, he's arrested. He's in jail now. Thank God he didn't take the plea deal because he could have went to jail for 3 or 4 years. He was smart enough not to do that. But what I'm saying, once again, in terms of the police chief, if you do the quick math, according to him, 13% of African Americans get arrested in Boulder. 13%. So what happened if 13% of white people got arrested in Boulder? Think about it. He said he even admitted that. He said, well, maybe these were transient black people. People who don't really, outside of Boulder. So if you could, look, just a minute. When I was actually, Boulder's full of people who come from outside. I was down at the mall, Pearl Street Mall this summer, 3 hours, didn't see any black people. I saw a whole lot of white tourists, and nobody was getting arrested. You understand what I'm saying? So this idea that somehow Boulder and the police force, when the things started happening with Jeffrey Marion, I had black students who came to me. I had women of color, men of color, Asian, Hispanic, all who had been racially profiled by the Boulder police. So I'm saying, don't believe this cat, but that's the bottom line. On the other hand, though, you have to be careful about, and I've been hearing this from the folks, about who you let lead your organizations. Okay, lead your protests. Because I can tell a couple of my friends, don't go there because the person who's leading it, he's got problems. And you don't want to be a part of his problem.
He's being paid by somebody to lead that.
Oh, like somebody on the other side.
I'm saying you have to be careful about who your leaders are. And it should be internally. People at Boulder should be leading stuff at Boulder.
Turnover.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Therefore, you know who's who and who is leading what. But I just wanted to put that out there. And please do not, I really like to see this young African-American male get off, but but we can't mention his racial. You understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
His racial profile.
I'll just leave. Of course, racial profile.
Yeah, you know, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number 5, so there's number 6. Where was it?
Yeah, you got it, that's right.
Yeah, there's so much I would want to say, but really I want to get to a really important point. Firstly, I just want you all to recognize that a lot of this work was done by a lot of individuals, but generally by a group that is called ourselves and themselves radically compassionate justice. And it's a group that's been developing here in Boulder with a lot of great people with some great ideas, including this is one of them. And I encourage you all to check it out. The only way I can connect you to it is through Facebook. Look it up, Radically Compassionate Justice, and it's just a really great group. And on that note, there's for coming up in February to really address some of these concerns that I hear so much from Black people about feeling that this isn't your place. And it hurts me because that's not how I live my life. I welcome people into where I live or in my home. I always welcome people. So it hurts me that in my city that's happening and that I'm part of that. So something that the group is working on is to get your stories to Boulder and beyond and to really hear what it's like to deal with racism every day. And it's a project we're calling 28 Stories, Racism in the Bubble, which is not really a bubble, but we like to think that it is. Certainly not when it comes to racism. But I would love for you to, as people of color and as African Americans and however you want to identify yourself, that you write these stories and tell the truth about what happens in Boulder. We have a 2-page spread lined up in the Daily Camera to publish these stories. We're working on other outlets as well, the weekly online outlets, KGNU, radio, and I have some paperwork that you can start looking at and thinking about writing those stories, and I can talk to you. Like you said, there's not a lot of Black people here, so if you want to just meet with me afterwards, and we can talk, and I can tell you how to fill those stories in and tell your story. Just see me.
Point of clarification, Elon, you said radically what?
Radically compassionate justice.
Justice?
Yeah.
Radically compassionate. Thank you.
So we have about 15 minutes to go. I'll take us down to 4, and you've been having your hands up since earlier, so you're 1. Okay. Oh yeah, 2. Okay. 3, and then 4. You've had a. Back, yeah.
If people hold up on clapping, it goes faster.
Can I be 5?
Give me 5, okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
More people can speak.
We'll do my closer to you.
Can I do a quick housekeeping short? We have some trash to kind of sort through if we want to recycle or else to clean up. So if we could get a couple of volunteers maybe to stick around afterwards, we'd really appreciate it.
And would we like to end maybe with Mr. B and Chairman Seku, like taking 2 minutes apiece maybe to kind of provide like a capstone, kind of encapsulate things? Would that be okay?
Okay. So 1.
Who was number 1?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make a quick point that complements some other things that have been said. That which you would abolish, you first make illegitimate. 3 things right now are legitimizing racism: the war on drugs, the war on immigrants, and the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and in war on terror in general. If we accept this, we cannot abolish racism here.
Hi, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Wyra. That's a name that I took when I was 20 years old. When I was 18 and 19, I was experiencing a super identity crisis based on even race, gender, ethnicity, any ism thing that you could name that's part of identity. I was experiencing a crisis. I didn't even, I was hospitalized actually because I was rejecting food, Anyway, so that was a part of my life. I just wanted to say that one way to fight isms and to really help friends that need it is to is something that someone said before about establishing it, and then you can't make a depressed person feel happy. You have to establish for them a role model. If you want a non-competitive society, you don't go out and play sports like soccer. You go unicycling, or you go juggling. There's so many environments, institutions that aren't occupied by people of color, or by women, or by people with disabilities. And yet there's few known, like skaters with in poor countries that are ravaged by war, who only have hands and skate, and we have touched on like the difference between corporate media and just regular media, and creating that media for others is so important. Use the technology that we have today to capture moments that bring us to a higher understanding of ourselves and our art form and not art. Challenge your right-handedness and your left brain way of thinking. Try teaching yourself to be ambidextrous. Try rewriting an alphabet that's foreign, that is like in Sanskrit or Chinese. That's just things to do that combat isms. Yeah. Or sign language. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to be quick so I can get to my sister here, because I know she always has great thoughts. But I want to point out another connection. Somebody pointed out the connection between the media and the police, or the media and the general status quo. I want to point out the connection between the ruling class, the wealthy elite, and the police and the system. So, although I would never disparage my black and brown brothers and sisters who face police oppression and societal oppression just for being black and brown. If you're poor, you have reason to fear the police. If you're disabled mentally or physically, you have reason to fear the police. If you're queer or trans, you have reason to fear the police. And if you're a noted political dissident, especially an anti-capitalist, and I happen to be in 3 of the 4 groups I've just mentioned, you have reason to fear the police. And the police are killing all of those groups in huge numbers because they will not conform to the status quo. And if we're here today saying that there are certain things to fear and change about the status quo, then we all have reason to fear the police. And we need to realize that. And we need to realize that there were lies told today and throughout this entire history, and that the police were founded in the South as slave catchers. There were no police before they needed slave catchers. There were hardly any crimes before they needed slave catchers. And in the North, It was industrial magnets that needed protection in a cash and carry economy from blacks and from immigrants. So this system was always built with racism and classism as the two connecting pieces that always held this system together. And if we want to change the system, we need to fear the current power structure and we need to fight it. The entire power structure as one. It happens to brown and black people for no reason except that they're brown and black. And it happens to everybody with any reason to dissent. And we need to fight it together. And if we don't do it as one, they'll divide us into every other group, and then they'll kill every other group. Because they only care about the ruling class, and they always have. So if you ain't got a lot of money, and white skin, and male cis privilege, they don't care about you. And they won't until we change it. And we have to change it together.
Yeah, I just want to say, well, first of all, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things here. And it's very sacrificial for me to be here in many ways because I've been very careful not to give the Daily Camera my name. And I'm not, this is not about you, Joy. I'm just, you know, and having gone outside and spoken to the police chief as he was leaving too, I put myself out there. But, you know, I guess that's something that's innately in me, you know, to express. It's natural. I've been traumatized by this system, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a mental health issue, and now I realize it's not. And speaking to what you were saying, I get that. You know, it's very easy to pathologize being black because it's criminalized all the time. You know, where it's like, you know, it's in the psyche, in the DNA of Americans to see us as savages, when in fact we are brutalized by savages. You know, and that's a reality. And I think that having a voice is the way that I raise myself. I raise my self-esteem. It's a way of having self-compassion, really, that I have a right to speak. And I own that right. And I'd rather die, you know, really, than give up that right to speak. Because that's one thing you can't take from me. So, you know, it's very, very painful for me every day here in Boulder. It's painful. And you all may not get a chance to really, really experience that, you know, but I'm really grateful that you all are here and that I could be here in the absence of the black people in Boulder who won't come out, and I understand why. I'm scared now. I'm really scared because I don't know what can happen to me by these crazy barbarians, really. So,
what happens to you happens to us.
Excuse me?
This is what this meeting is for.
I know that.
Right.
I hope you're hearing me.
I
know, and I hear you. I mean, yes.
Not trying to interrupt.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, and it's not about feeling sorry for black people. It's about recognizing your own self-hatred, because we all have it. Oppression, slavery affects both sides. If I am a tormentor and I come from a lineage of tormenting and dominating and killing people, what the hell? I mean, am I not traumatized, frozen? You know, so I mean, I think, you know, people want to get into activism, but true activism is starting with yourself, you know, and that's what I'm that's what I'm doing, you know. So healing my own trauma as a black woman. So not to go on too much, because I know time is of the essence, but I'm, you know, sharing this because I think the question really that we have to ask ourselves in Boulder is why, or not why, how do we get Black people to come out here and join me? I can't do it alone. It's hard some days to get out of bed. And when I came from Miami, I thought I had it bad on Miami Beach in a very Jewish community and Latino community that were very racist. I thought I had it bad, but I didn't feel threatened for my life. I didn't feel the hatred that I feel in Boulder. You know, not that it wasn't there. It's just that maybe we you know, work together a little differently there. But my point is, you know, how do we get African Americans out of their fear? You know, how can you all, that's how you help us. You want to know how to help us? Help us come out of our fear. Help us have a voice. You know, be willing to put yourself out there and speak to Black people that you know. If you know one, speak to them. Bring them out. You know, that's how you help us. As opposed to, I mean, this is great, but it would be even greater if the people that you're supporting could come out of their little hiding cubby holes and show their face. So that's what I have to share today. And I hope you guys can answer that. I would love to hear your responses when we wrap up.
I just want one more speaker, that's Sunny, who's a long-time activist, and then we'll go to the closing remarks from our two guests.
And if anyone would like to extremely quickly announce upcoming meetings, let's have Sunny announce upcoming meetings, and then we'll do just quick wrap-ups by our panelists.
This is 2 little paragraphs about the relation of Black people and Caucasian Americans. We have through our town a baseline. That line is the division between the free states and the slave states before the Civil War. So we've had it all the time. Also, if you go down and you know the Klan markings, the courthouse is filled with them.
Say it again?
Our courthouse is filled with Klan markings.
Klan markings. Really?
Yeah, it's really kind of makes my stomach sick every time I think about it. And the other is, we have a bomb coming. I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Maris Alcantara district. They call it Koreatown, the developers. We have Asian graffiti showing up on the north end of town. And they are more brutal than the Latin kids. Because as a manager, I had to stop and make sure that people weren't allied with me. The best way to have no trouble with gangs is not to have them in your building. And as that said, it's a little bit shocking about a Boulder being a Klan town. I was surprised when I found that out. Sorry.
Announcements?
Sure, and before, I wanted to do this before these gentlemen finish up because I'd like to leave with their voices. But I wanted to ask everyone who participated in organizing this to stand up for a second, if you're willing, because I'm so grateful that this happened and you guys all worked hard. And Keith in the back, who can't stand, who did so much. Thank all of you.
I'd like the rest of you guys to stand up for coming.
So I just remembered that there were a couple people that wanted to announce meetings.
Sure.
Yeah, hi guys. Again, I'm Jen Watson. I'm the facilitator for the Boulder Coalition and Alliance on Race. We are having a meeting this week, probably Thursday at 6 p.m. at First Congregational Church. Anyone is welcome to attend. It is totally confidential and private. Please email me to confirm that date and time at bcar2100 bcar2100@gmail.com. You can also at the very least get your name on my email list. I act as a clearinghouse for tons of groups and I disseminated information about this today. So bcar2100@gmail.com.
What's your name?
Jen Watson.
And did Radically Compassionate Justice, do you have something that's coming?
Yeah, we have a meeting, well, we're gonna put a meeting together this week, I think, but next week we have a meeting Monday. What's that date? 26th?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Monday the 26th at 6 p.m. Location to be determined.
Yeah.
So, unless we can have it here.
And you said you're in the
Yes.
But yeah, check the
I'm
Facebook
sorry,
page.
Judy has one, and then I have one.
Okay, Judy, okay, so,
Um,
1, 2, 3. on
Uh,
these.
I would like to invite anyone who's looking for support or community to attend a Unitarian Universalist congregation. That I can guarantee you that you will be welcome. And in fact, we are in need of people of color because we know we're imbalanced. And community is extremely important for me. And I offer that to you, and I would be glad to share with you. There are congregations in Boulder, in Lafayette, Denver, etc. So I believe in community, and it is from that place that I work for social justice and am in need of it.
And there's also JEPCO.
Yes, there are many, many churches in the metro area.
You had a meeting as well?
Yes, what I want to encourage you to come out is join the movement that is writing their own vision and
Home rule.
home rule. And here's the background on that. The word authority has the root word author. If you author something, you are the authority. So that we have a chance here in Boulder to govern ourselves through the home rule, through community rights, which would give rights to individuals, nature, and we can spell those rights out. The home rule movement, right? You can find it at BCCRN, that's Boulder County Community Rights Network.org, BCCRN.org. Please join us.
Home rule for the county.
And
For
you,
the
sir,
county.
have a meeting
We
as
already
well?
are home rule city already.
Well,
That's how we're getting municipalization now.
All right.
My announcement was essentially the same as the last one, except to add that we meet at, maybe it was mentioned already, at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at Unity, and that we are about the question, what do we mean by we, the people, run the show? And we are trying to, one of the things we want to do is to create through the election process a community rights charter, and some of us are working on what we want to see in that. It would be a charter commission involving 21 people. Anybody can run, and we continue to have the petitions that people have been signing. We need, I think it's 2,000 more signatures, is that correct? That we need in order to actually get on the ballot.
Thanks. 7 o'clock Wednesdays at the Unitarian Church. Unity Church. So we have a lot of activities planned too, so there's opportunities.
And those meetings are downstairs, or
Yeah, you have to find it. There's a million meeting rooms down there. Just wander around until you
I
find
wanted
it.
to honor our panelists' contribution of time and energy coming today by allowing them a chance to wrap up. You are both very powerful speakers, so I'm going to ask if we can keep it maybe on the 2-3 minute mark. If that's okay. And did you want to go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
All right. First of all, it's been my honor to be here. And couple things. And my family asked me to make sure I was told by some political advisors who are helping me to this, who are national folks, who are involved in the organizations getting folks elected where they wasn't supposed to get elected. They're on the team. They told me that we're going to do this. We're going to give you a 100-day activity of something you're going to do every day for 100 days that's going to guarantee a landslide. I said, They said there's only two problems though. You know, on May 6th, you'll either be dead or in jail. Because what's at risk is over $200 billion that comes into the city and county. And the last time Michael Hancock ran, he spent 1.5 getting his job that pays him $200,000. And he has effectively shot himself in the foot for the last 4 years. It's not going to be no problem beating Michael. He is going to beat himself. So I'm not worried about Michael. Nor am I running against Michael. I'm running for what we want. So this won't be a dog and pony show. It won't be a Willie Lynch thing. You know what I'm saying? And Michael's going to have to explain himself.
Is it Michael Kerrigan?
Hancock.
Oh, okay.
He's worried some more about losing. And I'm the winner because but I got sense of humor, though. He's serious about heart attack. I mean, we both came out of Manual High School. I was before the grade school. But he don't know nothing about none of this. And he ain't never seen none of this. What I'm getting ready. So this is going to be a shown up old school Thunderbolt. And I played on three championship teams. And so I know what to do. Right? So I'm going to close with this. Frederick Douglass said after the Civil War, he gathered us all up, him and Harriet and Susan B. Anthony was there, and he said, listen, in life, you may not get what you pay for, and you're going to certainly pay for all that you get, because freedom is not free. I don't do miracles. I don't walk the walk. This one's going to cost money. I've got to raise $2 million. Which means I got to find 2 million people going to give me $1. 300 million Americans? 2 million? I can't get 2 million to give me $1? I can quit right now. Okay. And so, in order for this thing to work so that once elected, we can be independent of any outside forces, we're going to have to pay for it. We're going to have to pay for it. Because anytime anybody else get into it, right, good people get corrupted with money. If you want to find the nature of corruption, follow the money trail. So, I'm going to need help. When you go on that card, and this is first, go to the platform. What's in the issues? Hit it. See something that you like, don't like, comment on it, fix it, tweak it, I don't care. This is yours. And put something on there. All right. Then what we're going to do is prioritize the list on the hits. And which one, every 5 that got the top hits, that's what we do. Period. In the story. That's it. Because in 4 years, I can't fix 300 years of madness. I can't do it. It's not realistic. Ain't going to happen. Unless we have a second Civil War and we just shoot it out at the OK Corral. All right? And I ain't trying to bring none of that together because, first of all, we are not organized to win that. Ain't no sense in talking about it. All right? Ain't no sense in talking about it. So we've got to think our way and act our way to be more effective and organized than what we could. Which means that you're right. Criticism starts with me starting with me first. I know I have a lot of characters. I do. And Martin King wasn't a perfect man. I'm not a perfect man. And guess what? Y'all ain't. So we stop playing right now and accept our human frailties that we're going to make some mistakes. I know we're going to make some mistakes. All right? I know it. And it's okay because we have the integrity to admit mistakes, fix it, and keep on moving. That's it. And if we do that amongst ourselves, all right, because integrity starts with legal level. It's a real simple thing that we can do. Right now, today, it ain't gonna cost you no money. Like, I see my friend right here, walking down the street. Good morning, sir. How are you doing? And smile, huh?
You know what I'm saying? I ain't got no teacher to work, right? How you doing? How you doing? Here, speak. You can't say good morning, good afternoon. We can just forget all of this. Ain't gonna be no communication. You can't do that. Come on, man. What's wrong with you? Are you civilized? Speak. Say good morning, good afternoon. How you doing? Keep on moving. Hey, think about thinking about spare check. Yo, I don't know nothing. Matter of fact, get quarters in here, they take them. Before they even ask. All right? Warm the hearts of the national people so they feel they have value by opening up your mouth, recognizing their humanity, and speak. Now, if you can't do that, everybody needs to go home. Because see, I don't care what the critiques are or information you got, whoop. If you can't do that, all of that information is new. Because you can't communicate that, how you going to communicate the rest of that? And make it where they can understand it. Where it comes from here. It comes from here. All right? So, I'm going to need those help. So on that card is the website. Check it out. Then there's a little button you hit, say, I want to make a contribution. Okay. We got kids who have what we call pennies for Seku. Right? I got $5, pennies, whatever in the penny bank. They don't send me all of that. All right, so I'm tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put it in the sack and I'm gonna figure out a way to get it back to you. Or put it in the bank somewhere so we can get to college with that. So it's hard for me to take that kind of money. All right, but I can't give it back to them and say I don't want it because they don't feel want it, and I need them to feel like they're part of this. All right, because we're talking about if it ain't you, right there. What are we doing something? I can't make it better for you right now. This is all bullshit. Real. And if I ain't thinking about you right now, this is all bullshit. So we can stop. We can stop now playing the games that we play with each other. With the rationalization and justification and our ability to sort through stuff very, very smoothly with language and have no intention of doing none of that. You got me? You feel me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. You feel me?
Yeah.
All right, you gotta have the energy to make this thing
I
But you gotta get the business. All right, and you gotta go to work. You know what I'm saying? And you got to work every tick of the clock because every second of your life. You live to it like it's like your last because it just might be. And guess what? If I die today, guess what? I had more fun than that.
I'm upset. I'm upset because she's upset. I'm upset because he's the only minority in the situation that's damn near impossible. Okay? But she upsets me the most because we went through this already in Denver, Colorado. And a little bit here, believe it or not. Remember when Miami came to Boulder? They wanted a #1 team in the country. And they got to do any damn thing they want, didn't they? Yeah, rape women and all that. Well, let's be for real. Because that's what they wanted, a national team. And they were black. But none of them people that I talk about became successful. Okay? But what she's talking about is more important. I don't see how human beings cannot recognize another human being. And like he said, speak. There's nothing wrong with speaking to anybody. Hello, goodbye. Usually if you walk by most people, if you say hi, they say hi. That's all you got to do. You know, break that ice. But what happened to her happened to us. I got to say this because I'm bothered down in Denver about 3 things. Number one, you're looking at the person that started the Martin Luther King March, okay? That was taken away from us, a group called an emotion. We went through the same thing that you saw in the picture. We had to get a permit. I got the permit from Denver since I was working there. And we went over to Macedonia Church and we walked on the sidewalk. We walked over to the park where they had a Martin Luther King statue looking like an ape. Remember that? Big ape man. Well, that's because you're in Colorado, which was a rebel sympathizer. One of our marches, we became the second largest march. Wilma didn't start the march. You know, Wilma didn't start. I know this guy. I'm over there. I mean, he knows. I'm a hellraiser. Start a lot of stuff. And Wilma didn't start that march, but she stole that march from us because she's a politician. She ran that march 5 years. And yes, the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan was given a permit right down at the state capitol the same day we were having our march. Yeah. And our march has always been pretty much integrated because our first march, when we marched, we decided, call us so you can only march to the capitol. I mean, to the statue. But there were so many people that gathered. We came on down Colfax. And there was so many members of the hippie community, white, because they were hippie community joined that march. And we stormed the state capitol. And we went in there, and then that's what Wilma, being the politician that she is, to act like she was, well, everyone in the country was wanting Martin Luther King to be a holiday. So, you know, we fought her. But I'm going to tell you what the main reason why we didn't get our recognition until 15 years later is because we were Catholic. They didn't want to admit that the Catholic population, which is small in Denver, started to march. There was a conflict between the Protestants and the Baptists. And I happen to be a Catholic fan. So it took them 15 years when my kids was in that cold, bitter day for the march, the first march. The third march was when we had to fight the Klans. And buses were turned over and all kinds of things right there in Denver, Colorado. Okay? Getting the Klan out of there. Okay? So I get upset about hearing things like what she's talking about. That disturbs me. Because either we can go by what Malcolm X says, by any means necessary, or we could go by what we have instituted in us as human beings and as people. And as human beings and as people, we can't allow what you said earlier about the number of things that we have to really recognize with women, institution of, I call it institution of slavery all over again. Because there's so many blacks and minorities in there for no reason at all. Their life is destroyed because once they get out of there, they can't get no job. You might as well forget that. So they don't have no life in America, none, except to go back to jail, be reinstituted. And all I have to say is there's always a group that we have to start with. And this group is right up here in Boulder. That's why I came up here, because Darren asked me to come up here. I even ran for mayor that one time down there. Did I not run for mayor? I ran for mayor because the Webb stole our march from us. And I was so upset. And we helped Webb get in office, the first black mayor. We told him about the tennis shoe. Alfred Sayers told him about the tennis shoe concept. So he walked the community and he became mayor. But he forgot about us. Yeah, okay? He got into that power system, what you was talking about. Okay? Money took him away from that. And the black community didn't get what Federico Pena gave the Mexican community. At least they started getting jobs and stuff. Black people have never been given their rightful right in this country ever. Okay? And I know when you start talking about 40 acres and a mule, there's a new system that they could come up with for people that can qualify, that they want to make a change in their life, and give them the chance to make that change, housing or whatever, to make that chance. Then we become closer to equality, what this country is supposed to be built on. But right now, we're not equal. In fact, if you're not careful, ISIS is going to take a move in this country, not only in British, President McMahon British, but see, there's a lot of black people that are so fed up, like what happened in New York, could happen right here, where someone's gonna come up and say pow pow to a police officer. And don't give a damn because they don't give a damn about us. Oh yeah, that's how close we are to this kind of action in this country. But what we have to do is come together as a community, as a people, as one people. The Constitution was written by the people, for the people. And if it can't be followed, well then we're lost as a country. If we can't change some of these ridiculous laws, federal buildup, if we can't control the cop in the city or the state, then yeah, we might have to have some help from the feds. I hate to say that, but we might have to have some help here to make sure that these counties and places like this that can just, like this lady here, you know, you ain't nobody. And here she's a wonderful person. Working on a degree. She comes up here and she thought Miami Beach was racist. Well, she sure got a taste up here. Because this is one of the racist places in America. They do not want nobody up here because anybody poor that don't have a job that come up from Denver to up here take their asses to jail and alley here. And that's a fact. You ain't gonna see no homeless walking on the street of Boulder like you do in Denver. Okay? Because it ain't gonna happen. Because they're gonna either go to jail or mysteriously come up missing. I don't know. But I know I'm upset because of what happens to her. And I've been upset way long ago before. I've been put in jail and everything else for my belief. And like I said, I even ran for mayor to tell women where you did not start that march. And they said they were more interested in how happy my hair was and what kind of platform I was running on. It was funny. And then because I was in administration, because I was director of drug court, pretrial services. So I worked with all the judges in the county. I could name them before I retired. And the main thing about that is that I already know the political system, I mean the prison system, because I worked in that prison system out at the county jail for 12 years, and I saw how these people were being treated. And then they kicked me out of the county, the county jail because I was smoking weed. I don't mind telling you guys. But there was no law on the books for that. And so they couldn't fire me. They moved me down from the county where I helped start the halfway houses and all that stuff. You're looking at the person that helped start them halfway houses, which ain't no damn good now. There's so many halfway houses, and all they do is get a person down there. If he violates, he's working. He's a half hour late for work, he's revoked. They send him back to the place. You know, Miami, Canyon City, Butte, is all filled with minorities. Okay? And that's a fact. Go check it out. You don't even have to. You would think that he was in a black township of prisons. Okay? So we got a lot of work to do here in America. We got ISIS on our back. We got angry black men that are willing to run up and shoot a cop. With if they kill us, we kill them. You want to know the truth about the matter? That's what's happening. They're trying to keep it on the down low, on the down cut. All they have to do is do like that man said. He was upset with his wife, with his woman. He went and shot her, bang. Then he went and shot 2 cops and got killed. Now, is that what America is supposed to be about? I don't think so. I think as human beings, as people that stood up for what we call equality, one of the strongest person in the country when it comes to individual freedom, she ain't free. She's scared to death. I would be like, I'm too damn hungry to be scared like that. But I'm scared for her. I sure am. I mean, if they arrest her like that, something's got to be done about it. And I mean right today, not tomorrow. something gotta be done. Cause all they're doing is gun running. And that brother there, he said, I'm out of here. Well, that's exactly what they want. They don't want you here in the first place. And she already said she's leaving. She ain't never seen nothing like it in her life. She thought Miami was bad and got up here and saw, well, damn, okay? Is that really what's happening here? Well, you got to be afraid like that? We ain't in no communist country where that kind of shit happens all of the time. Excuse my language. Where's that little kid? I don't like cussing around kids.
Maybe we are
okay.
communists or
Yeah,
fascists.
but what I'm just saying is that, you know, and I know I'm running my mouth, but I run my mouth. But that police chief, you know what to do to him? Hey, buddy, guess what? Because we know you're a liar. Okay? Guess what we're going to do? We're going to let you know what we're going to do. And you're not going to sway it like they did in the movie and stuff. We're going to do what we said we're going to do. And then do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't care with that protest. I read a protest against Channel 9. And I'll never forget it. It said, whiteys and niggers are getting along together, but look out for them GD Orientals. For men, you too, you set me down. This is years and years. Well, who are we dealing with now? Orientals. Korea, is that right? North Korea? That's right. And all of that? Well, guess what? They're Orientals. And this person that made that racist statement got fired because of me. You know what happened to me? I got beat up on a bus, tried to get beat up. We was kicking ass. And they broke my glasses and all of that kind of stuff. I had a split lip. The police came. The 3 people that jumped off, what happened to me, a lady on the bus was being harassed, black lady, and I was sitting in the back of the bus, and I said, hey, leave her alone. And they were waiting for me to do that. So I go up there, and they caught me, boom, boom. And so we're fighting right over there on Lincoln Street and 7th, okay? And so I'm whipping ass. And so, because I'm not easy to go down, I'm one of those type of people. I grew up rough, brick city. I'm the oldest of 12. Okay, so I didn't have no easy life. None of my brothers had easy life. None of my uncles. All of them went to the penitentiary. I was lucky that I didn't go to the penitentiary. I sure was. Just how we had a meeting. Me and my brothers, we had a meeting. They said that's because you wouldn't got an education. You ain't like the rest of us. But I was like the rest of them because I just had just as crazy as they did. Only difference was I tried to be educated. And then I was told, you could be better than and then I watched Martin Luther King. You could be better, nonviolent, than violent. But guess what? They're running on what Malcolm and Farrakhan is saying now. Farrakhan's a racist. No doubt about it. Okay? And he's got an answer for America. You know, let's get rid of it if he had his way. But we ain't like that. There's a lot of black people that ain't racist. Not yet, anyhow. But let them, all of them that going through the system, and their kids and their wives and everybody like that, they still got something to be said about that. These people aren't getting none of the benefits that they should have in society. So what do you think is going to happen? Let's say 10 years from now, God willing, they're going to have some guns out there, like we did right here in Denver, Colorado. The Brown Beret, the Black Panther had a shootout with the police down in what they call Mestizo Park now. All during that movement segment that we're talking about. A lot of people. The reason is, okay, now I'm through, is that Lauren Watson, I'm going to mention his name, and that Robert Young, Squirt, Lauren almost, he's crippled now. But Robert, because they were defying the police, they riddled his gun, his van with bullets. Killed him. And what's happening now? The same damn thing.
And I mean, Carter, Denver, we were right there in the mix with all the big cities. Remember that the governor was gonna have they were waiting for us to come downtown. We wouldn't have never got past Broadway. Because you gotta remember, this is a military establishment, Colorado is. And they would have wiped us out because they were waiting for us. And we were warned, don't go downtown today. Because we sure was going down there after they killed Robert Young. And it didn't happen, you know. And so I'm closing it. I know I get a little, but
Well, that's a
you
good
know,
thing.
this woman here needs help. Someone's got to help her now. She don't need to walk out this meeting feeling downtrodden and think that, and she needs help. Because see, he's an Uncle Tom. They don't like Uncle Tom either. Okay? You know, yeah, I know about that because I was Uncle Tom, but they couldn't deal with me, you know.
Tom too.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know what that means. Yeah, black people don't even like you, or they're confused about what you are and everything.
They trot me out.
Yeah.
Look at him.
You know, he's pointed out because he's the only one in there. But that shit's got to stop. I'm gone. Listen, I can go on and I'll come back up here. I mean, I'll do some help organizing. I'll do some people things. That's what I'll do. Okay, we'll tell the police, man, we're coming out there today. You need to know that, you know, because we know you're a liar. Okay, and you know, we already know what's up. Okay, so here we come anyhow. They ain't gonna do nothing to you because they better not. They better.
Amen.
I was going to suggest there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of really powerful energy and dialogue that happened today. What I was going to suggest is that we just sort of end the formal part and let people talk to each other and network. And I get the sense there was a lot of, you know, constructive things that were said here. So that's all I wanted to do was just give the chance to let the work of the organizing happen.
I was supposed to have 10 minutes at first, and then I cut down to 5.
I know.
I took out my 10.
I want to thank the meeting for being a good meeting.
Yeah,
We're
so
able
we
to solve our
can
problems.
Yeah.
Now, hey, I forgot to announce the march on Monday, all right? Martin Luther King's march on Monday, City Park statue, all right? Going down Dixon Park. After the march, there is a conference at McNichol's called Black Lives Matter, done by
Freedom Riders.
kids who went to Ferguson from there, to bring us to the message. Now, listen, I want you to hear me. Can I get your attention just 1 second so I know? Now, listen, I'm a practitioner of what I say. For the last 3 months, I've been working with the people. Get them to come to the Martin Luther King March and march with me as supported me for mayor. All right, they come. Matter of fact, they're the one that gave me the money to come up here to the seats and talk to y'all until y'all can come. And they're gonna march with us on a campaign against fear. And we said FEAR, that means face everything and relax. All right, so I want all y'all, to all your friends, right? We got a banner that we're marching behind, all right, for my candidacy. And I promise, my advisors, I could to unite the city. Now, that don't mean we're going to agree on everything. We're just starting out with we're going to march. We're going to eat. All right? And then one day it's going to crystallize. And we're going to find that we got more common than differences because we ain't scared no more to have a conversation.
Did you get a permit?
Yeah.